Today, I'm going to go through step by step on how to set up formwork for concrete, including preparing the ground, the carpentry, placing the reinforced steel mesh, tying it all together, and ready for the contractors to come in and pour the slab. Let's go. Hey guys, Musa here from Quantum Home Improvements and Solutions. Welcome back. We bought this large bushland property over 9 years ago, and for the 4th time, I built a family home. Moving back to Sydney after living in a coastal town for more than 10 years, we were left short financially due to the Sydney real estate prices. A big hello to our friends and the beautiful people of Bateman's Bay. We called on favours from family and friends, and after a year and a half, we moved into our house around about 95% complete. However, the outdoor Alfresco area was left incomplete, which looking back was not a bad thing. After living in this house for more than 7 years, we've come to realise that it's just too small. So first we thought to extend out, but the width was not wide enough either. So a while back, we concreted a 1 metre strip on either side. Now we're ready to extend the concrete out a further 4.3 metres, which will give us in total of entertaining area 85 square metres. We decided to do this now in preparation to complete the Alfresco area together with the outdoor facilities sometime in the near future, God willing. We're really looking forward to that. So let's get into it. All right, so using the string line to line up with the new 1 metre slab that was poured, and we run a line and we spray. Now the only reason we're doing this at the moment is to give us a line where we're going to do the earthworks. So this slab will have footings just on the outer part, so we'll get the backhoe out later. So we're doing a footing there, across there and back there, and then we'll do one in the center as well, just to give it some more strength, because we will be sitting on fill here. And whenever you sit on fill, it's best to have some kind of footing, some structure that will give you, or give the concrete support, so it's not relying on the fill area where it will subside over time and you'll get a lot of cracks in your concrete. Now I'll just continue marking out my parameter, and so I'll move the string line and then I'll continue on the other parts as well. So what I've done now is marked out from the other end to here, measuring out the same width as what I've got. So we just spray the ground again. I've got to say, you don't have to be too accurate with this, but you know, within a certain tolerance, because you can actually still correct it later. I will just get a measurement of 4.3 metres out from the slab. So this is the halfway mark just there, 300 mil. So just either side of the center mark, just come out 150 mil. So it's going to be a 300 mil trench coming through here. Now the concrete itself, when it was originally poured, had a footing put in. So I'm not going to put a footing against the other concrete. The starter bars will connect into that concrete, and then that'll be the strengthening point. It looks like a really good size area already, just by looking at the parameters. All right, so that's it, all of marking. You don't need to do anything more than that. You might have to remark again later. There's plenty of paint here, which is good. Always clear the paint out to not let it dry in the nozzle. So next step is to bring the machine in, the little TYM. So now I'll set up the string line. So I'll wrap it around the brick and I will lay it down just to stop it from falling over. This is where I want the string line to go, on the edge of the 1 meter extension, and take it out. So now I'll just drive a star peg into the ground. Okay, so I'll put a bit of pressure on the string line, get it to meet to roughly the height of the concrete. Put a bit of tension on that string line and then just tie it off. So now I'll bring the string line this way. And that is actually right on 4.3 meter. So I'll just pull this through now. Okay, so I have the height that I want now. It's lined up pretty good. Okay, so now the dimensions from the Alfresco area next to the brick wall on the string line has measured out the same here, and also the lengths coming out of the same, and doing the diagonal are also now the same. So I'm very happy with that. This is now square. These are all second-hand timbers which I've used on other parts of the house for concrete and other purposes. So I've got a range of different types of timbers. Now I do need a range because the grounds are falling at different slope levels. And so just here is about 300 mil, but generally it's around 150, sloping down to around 200. And now because these trenches are right on the line where the formwork's going to go, you cannot put a stake in the ground on the edge there because it's going to go to nothing. So what I'm going to do is make some offset supports. All right, so just place one on top of the other. I'd say 3 nails in there would be plenty. Then you just nail this one into place. When I set up this formwork, I'll place the longer section to the ground and this section up against it. If I was to do it this way, it will have force on the back here and could push that through. So I would suggest to do it this way, and that'll hold it. And so when the star peg is placed in the ground just here, that'll support there and the load will go to this point here. And so everything will be loaded completely. And so from this section here, that will be, when the force is against here, that'll load down to this point here and it'll hold in place, so it will not move. Okay, so that's going to make it solid and stop the timber from deflecting and from bowing when the concrete's being poured. So now I'll go ahead and just make the rest of them. So these big ones I'll be using on the back end here where the most amount of weight's going to be. So the next step now is to place these boards down. Now I do have to grab one more board to go across this section here, but everything is being cut to length. Not to say that I still have to put some more timber underneath, but for now I'll just do the upper section and then cut timber to fit to close it off from underneath. Okay, so I've got this LVL board in place. This will be the formwork that we're going to use, and then we'll use the supports going up against them, and they're going to be roughly 1.1 meters apart, 1.1 centers apart. And as you can see, the string line is fairly low compared to the height of the board. We do want to screed off the board here. We're not using lasers, but just here from this point down to about here, it's just too high. So I'll just use a matic and just clear out just a little bit of a pathway there. And we have the same thing on the other side. So I'll do both sides now and get this board ready in place. Once I place the board onto the concrete area, I then use a quick grip to be that second person for me, to hold this in place while I set up the board on the string line and get my levels. So the string line is very important in the initial stage, but then you use a level as you progress. So just at this point, I will be moving this one again later, but for now I just need to hold the board in place. So it's roughly at 1.1 meter spacing, roughly, to the center. I'll raise that board up. I'll do it roughly on the string line. It won't be perfect. And it's going to want to tilt at this point. So what I'm going to do is stabilize the other end. What I'm going to do to stabilize it, I will hit in a star peg and put that in its place. And this will lock in this side. So this star peg has 3 holes. I'm going to the middle hole. Now it's on a slight angle, not a big deal. Not a big deal. Using a Type 17 hex drive timber screw, I'm going to screw that into the star peg to hold this into place. Get it as straight as I physically can. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to hammer in the peg at this point. So I'll just put 2 nails in that should be plenty. That the force is going that way, not that way. Straighten up the board to the string line. A project like this will take a person, probably 2 people, probably about 2 days to set out from beginning to end, ready for the contractors to come and pour the concrete. So now I'm going to spread the recycled concrete, just a rough sort of spread at this point, just trying to fill up some of those high spots. Now the reason you need to level this off, first of all, you need a fairly flat base for the concrete to sit on. Second of all, it's very hard to calculate your quantities of concrete or cement if you don't have a consistent base. So you've got to try to make it as consistent as possible. Now, so I don't pull up the rocks from the bed, I've turned the rake the flat end. So by using my 2 meter level, placing it on the concrete and on the formwork, I can then judge the height that I need. So it's a little bit high there. I've put a bit too much of the sand. Not a big deal. So you just got to just spread it around until you get the height that you need. Now it's only about 10 mil too high. So just keep playing around with it until you get that desired height. So the pad is now finished, both sides, and the footings have been leveled off, and everything's looking really good. So everything from the board down is 400 mil across, deep, and the footings are 300 mil wide, and the pads are lower than the finished slab height, the anticipated finished slab height of 100 mil. Now I'm going to use my Bosch hammer drill, and I'm going to use this masonry drill bit, which is a 12 mil, and drill into the concrete slab, coming from each end, 200 mil, and then 500 mil spacings between them. And so I'm going to drill 50 mil down into the slab and drill straight across as far as I can with this drill bit. And then I'll then drive these rods, they're 12 mil rods, into the slab. So when the slab is actually poured, the two will stay connected. And so one will, over time, will not raise higher or lower than the other. So the next stage now is placing the steel down. Now I'm using 82 mesh, which is 8.2 mil mesh. It's 200 mil spacings between the bars. A bit of an overkill. You could probably get away with a 72 mesh, but I'm choosing 82. I like to be over-engineered than rather than under-engineered. And so when you're placing it down, you're supposed to miss off or pull the steel off the formwork by 50 mil. And that stops any kind of corrosion coming from the steel outwards. So now I'm going to cut this steel. This area is 4.3 meter long, and I'm just going to cut it at 4.2, and I've already marked it out. And I'm using bolt cutters. You can actually use a grinder. And I would say that I probably will have to use a grinder. This might be a bit too heavy for me to cut. You're probably wondering where I got the mesh. So the mesh was supplied to me by Oz Rio. I get all my mesh from there. They're a great bunch of people, very good service, delivery's good, always on time, and very reliable. And I just won't go past them. So I'll just marry the two bars up now. So the bars, that's the center bar right here. And so I've gone 100 mil over both sides. So it's overlapping from there to here, 200 mil. And that's what I'm doing for the whole project. So where you've got three lots of sheets meeting each other and all overlapping on top of each other, you can see by the color here, this is a newer sheet, which I picked up from Osrio the other day. And the one underneath is an older one. So if you can see this section of steel, I sit it side by side on the next one. So that gets it down lower, so it's not sticking up too high for the concreters. And very soon I'm going to tie this all together once I've done all the trench mesh. This is probably the time where you can reach down to put the chairs under the trench mesh, because it's going to be hard to get to it later when you start putting these chairs on the upper level. And so what these chairs are, they're a piece of plastic. The steel sits inside this area here, so it just slots through, and there's two slot heights. So here, that represents the height of 50 millimeter. There represents the height of 65 millimeter. So it depends on the height of your slab. Now, because this is a 100 mil slab, I personally am putting the steel in the middle. So 50 mil high, and the concrete will be 50 mil above the mesh, roughly. So what I'll do now is tie the overlap on both sides and do every fourth bar. So the wires I'm using, just give you a bit of a close-up there. So these are a 150 tie wire. You can get these at longer lengths. I find the 150s are long enough. If you've got a lot of joins, a lot of mesh sitting on top of each other in a thicker steel, then you're going to need longer wires. But they've got holes, or they've been turned in on both ends. And so all you do is just bend the middle, place the tool in between, the rod sits on the bottom, and you pull hard and it just ties it up. Okay, so the steel has now been all tied together on all the joints, and the steel is one piece now. Now, that's what gives it its strength when it's one piece. So when the concrete then is poured, it all holds together nicely. So concrete itself does not have tensile strength. That's why we put steel in there, to give it the strength to hold together. So now it's all held in place. Now there's two more things to do. The first one is placing these chairs in underneath, and I'll do it at every fourth bar, going down and across. And then after that, I will place safety plastics over the star pegs. It's really important to look after tradesmen, to keep in the back of your mind, safety is always paramount. It's first. You've got to do everything safe. Jason and Mark, the team are here. Jason, with the vibrator, what is it? How does it actually work? Like,
you're vibrating the air out of the concrete.
Beautiful. So it makes it more compact.
Yeah, more dense.
More dense and stronger.
But you don't want to vibrate it too much because you don't want the stone
to separate.
Like if you vibrated a whole heap of it, especially up here, we won't be vibrating it more.
It's the footings are really that important.
Gives you the strength
too.
If you vibrate it too much, the stone will fall to the bottom. But you want the stone on top.
So Mark's just now doing the parameters, setting up the boundaries, and then he'll screed in between. So he'll get that right, and then they'll fill the inside. What Jason's doing is just vibrating the footings only. The slab itself won't need it. So just giving more strength to the footings that are going to hold the slab.
And then I reckon we'll probably get to about here.
Yep.
1.6, so 1.6 by 4.3.
Is where you can find him on any competitive evenings that you just might pass out for the night, you know, you feel the heart palpitations happening.
Okay, so now the guys are floating the concrete, and they've done the bull float. We'll let that dry and then we'll go through and do the finish off. So it's been now 2 days since they poured the concrete and it's drying beautifully. So one thing you've got to do with fresh concrete is put water on it a couple of times a day for the first 7 days. And what that does is just slows down the curing process and allows the sporine in the concrete to continue to grow. And the growing of the sporine actually knits the concrete together. So it's really important you do water the concrete regularly for the first 7 days. Now, concrete takes 28 days to get to what they call the full strength, but in actual fact it takes about 50 years to get to full strength, but most of the strength is gained at the first 28 days. This stage of the Alfresco area upgrade is now complete and I'm very happy with the size. I hope you enjoyed the content of this video and I'd ask if you'd please consider to subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.